Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 29 of UnCoMfY CoNvOs. This is your boy Shiv, your guy, your dude, your man, your boy, your man boy, whatever you want to call me. And today we're going to talk about autism anxiety. I don't know if you have it or if maybe someone you know has had it. Just maybe some of the anxieties that come from having that condition. And to talk about this anxiety, I have an awesome person on today. I met him during the quarantine, friend, befriended during quarantine. Really great guy. He's a digital artist. He's does videography and photography. Follow that at Real Bazz Kill on Instagram. Also during the day, he's full-time IT, and he's from Birmingham in the UK. So that's exotic, exotic might not be the right word, but it's awesome, different country. So without further introduction, thank you so much for being on, Bazz Kannan.
Thanks for having me on, bro. And yeah, I think exotic is definitely the right word.
Yeah. Exotic, yeah. Wait, first of all, did I say that right? Kannan?
We can work with that. Some people say Kannan, like the Kannan.
Yeah, what's the actual right one?
I'm gonna say with the Indian pronunciation, Kannan.
Kannan. Okay, I'm Indian. That's embarrassing. I mean, I've had that with a few Indian names. Well, one of the previous guests, you know him, but I also had trouble pronouncing that. Meanwhile, I'm Indian. I should know how to say the words.
Yeah.
But how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I actually feel honored to be on here because I've actually listened to a couple of your podcasts beforehand. Like I've seen a couple of your episodes, and I must say I'm a big fan.
I appreciate it. That's really kind. Sometimes I don't even know if people are listening to it, so it's nice to know that you are listening.
Yeah, I don't know. Would it be weird if I asked you for your autograph?
That's too much. I would, I'd give it to you, obviously, but I don't think it'd be worth much.
I think it'd be worth more than, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds, for example.
I definitely want a Ryan Reynolds autograph. That's is he one of your favorite actors?
Yeah, Deadpool's one of my favorite Marvel movies. I just love how he pokes fun at literally almost everything.
Yeah, he's good. He's very he's funny. He has a lot of banter and he's witty, I think. I've seen him in his roles. I definitely like him a lot. And he's jacked. I think,
yeah,
right?
that's to be expected from a Hollywood celebrity.
Yeah. But I appreciate you coming on. I know obviously the topic today is autism anxiety. And I think it's very courageous for you to even talk about it and be willing to share it. I just I know you told me Asperger's was kind of what it was, the diagnosis for you, but
Asperger's syndrome, yeah.
Got it. And just kind of more light onto that, because I don't know as much about it either. When was that diagnosed, or when did you find out?
Yeah, I can definitely share some. Just to explain what it is, Asperger's syndrome is part of the autistic spectrum, and it's just a different way of processing information, and just the way the brain is actually wired, it's different to that. There's actually two types of people in this world. There's neurotypicals, which I'd imagine is the majority of the population. I don't know if you've ever come across that word before.
No, I haven't.
Oh, I don't think a lot of people have, but yeah, that's what it is. And then there's people who's on the autistic spectrum. I feel like it's one of those things where it affects different people differently. Some people will probably have Asperger's as well, but then their experiences would be way different to what I've been through. But I guess for the purpose of this podcast, I'm going to be sharing my own personal experiences with it.
Right.
Growing up from childhood up until how I got to where I am today. So the best way to think of it is how there's two computers, you have a Mac and Windows. I don't know what you're using right now because I'm using a Mac.
I'm using Mac too.
Yeah. Like if you go back to like, let's say 2010, like the majority of users would be using Windows computers, and a few people would have been using Macs. Like they're both computers, but they just have a different way of performing operations and tasks. And that's essentially how the brain works for people with Asperger's.
Got it. Got it. That's an
Yeah.
interesting analogy. So how was it during childhood or during that time? Like in terms of you said like there's different ways to come up with solutions in your brain, or it operates a little bit differently. So how was did you notice that like the way you thought was different, or in school growing up or anything, or was it like how did that impact you specifically?
Yeah, I can answer this for sure. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I knew I felt differently, like growing up, like in school. Like I knew I was different to like all the other kids in my class, but I had no idea why I was different.
Mm-hmm.
And like I can talk about, the benefits of having Asperger's, because generally when you mention the word autism, like it has like a negative like connotation to it, but that's not necessarily the case. Like, there are benefits to having it as well. And like one benefit I've had is like I'm pretty good with attention to detail. Like I started drawing art when I was a kid, and
Mm-hmm.
people were generally amazed by the attention to detail I had in my drawings. And I guess that's when I started to figure out, maybe if I go into something art related, then I could do well in that. So that's that. And in terms of the difficulties, like the main difficulties that I've had is reading non-verbal cues, so like body language, facial expressions, understanding the tone. So things like sarcasm or banter, initially I
Mm-hmm.
had difficulty understanding that, because how in with banter there's like a fine line between banter and bullying. And like
Right, right, right. Yeah.
some people they'll try to justify it as banter to get away with it, but really it's like, really they're just trying to like just poke fun at you at your expense. And I've had quite a few experiences in the past where I thought someone was bantering with me, but then it turns out they were just laughing at me or taking advantage of me for like no real reason.
Yeah.
And there were also times where I thought someone was poking fun, but really they were just having friendly banter. So it's
Oh,
really,
wow.
it
Yeah.
makes it difficult to distinguish between the two.
Got it. That's really interesting. I mean, that's horrible that people would bully and then you mistaked it for banter, and then the other way around. I'm trying to think, because just from our like, I mean, just meeting you, right? Like, I had no idea that you even had any condition or like anything. Like, I didn't notice any. Like, I was just like, oh, just a friend, Like, I'm just like. So when you told me, I was surprised, not surprised, but like I just didn't. It just didn't occur to me, you know. Uh,
Yeah,
and so the reason I bring that up is because when you talk about social cues and stuff like that, even when I crack a joke or when usually I feel like we've been on. I mean, we haven't known each other for too long, but we've been on the same page so far, and so that's another thing where I'm like, oh, like but you're saying more maybe when you were younger or
yeah.
like growing up, that's when it was harder because you were still like kind of learning that.
Yeah, like I had no idea about it. In fact, I didn't even know what mindset was 5 years ago. Like it was only recently I started getting into that and then understanding who I truly was. And
Right,
I guess
right.
the good thing about social skills is, even though I struggled with it initially, like it is something you can eventually overcome. Like you can work on it.
Yeah.
Like what I've done is to, put myself in social situations where I can observe other people, like try to learn what they're doing, and then try to like, I guess, imitate that. And I've also like read books as well on how to like improve my conversation skills, and and to try and make sure that I can do a better job at like making a connection. And I
Yeah.
definitely feel like, yeah, I've come a long way from how I was back in childhood to where I am today. Like
Yeah.
I can say I've got some good mates around who have been there for me like during like the shit times. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're able to, that's amazing that you said you envision yourself in social situations.
Like I can do that now. Like even just reaching out to people on Facebook
Yeah.
or media, for example. Like if you asked me to do this 5 years ago, I'd be terrified to do it. Like I
Oh,
don't think
got
anyone
it.
can do it. But now it's like, yeah, I feel comfortable doing it now.
Yeah. And so is it more like outreach? You're comfortable with like reaching out to
Yeah,
people, just like stuff?
comfortable reaching out to people like I don't even know, because once I understood the idea that a stranger is just a friend or a partner you haven't met yet,
Yeah.
then that definitely makes it a hell of a lot easier.
Wow. And then you read books. You read books on it, on how to improve. So I think that's like incredible because, I mean, it's just it shows that like you're willing to do whatever it takes to like improve or
Yeah,
get better. And it sounds like there isn't even ego in it, right? It's like, oh, like, let me just see if I could improve. Like that's something that I would, you're inspiring me to want to do that too, like read books on that stuff. Cause I feel like you don't generally, like I haven't read, stuff on that but I'm sure like it's helpful information. What was in that reading, I guess, like what were some of your takeaways or something that maybe shifted your perspective on social interactions from when you were younger?
yeah, I can definitely speak for this. Like it highlights the conversation mistakes,
Yeah.
which not just me, but generally people make. And one of them was, getting married to a conversation topic. Like that was something I struggled with, like during my younger days. Like let's say, back in the day, like, did you ever play like Pokemon or Beyblade back in the day?
I did both. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I used to play it so much as a kid to the point where I was pretty much obsessed with it. Like whenever I was talking to someone, I would always like talk about Pokemon, like, oh, catching all 151,
Yeah.
or let it rip.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where people were getting fed up because I wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah.
And and people would literally call me a buzzkill just because I wouldn't stop yapping about Pokemon. Like, they were like, can you for once not talk about, catching all these Pokemon and stuff?
Wow.
Yeah, and that's where I got the name Buzzkill from. That's how I got my username, because I was literally called a Buzzkill growing up. And then
Oh
my
God.
name was Bazz, and then replaced Buzzkill with Buzzkill.
Yeah, your name. That's very clever.
Yeah, that's
Um,
the origins behind it. Yeah.
yeah, wow. Yeah, getting married to a conversation topic. That makes sense. I mean, but it's warranted. I mean, when it's Pokemon and you're that young or Beyblades, like I definitely got stuck on those topics too. So but I see what you're saying. So what was it like you were talking to people and you just wouldn't stop like even if maybe they tried to shift the conversation topic, you were still like, I still want to talk about Charizard.
Yeah, it was definitely like that, man. Like, I remember, like, when I was like, I think I was 12 years old at that time. Like, I would go up to them and say, "Hey, do you play Pokemon?" And they would be like, "Oh my God, Pokemon is for babies. I play Grand Theft Auto and all these cool games. Pokemon is
Oh,
game."
got
But then I'm like, "Bro, you're 12 years old and you're playing games which you're not supposed to be playing anyway." So
it.
technically, I'm not the loser. I'm supposed to be playing games which is right for my age.
Yeah. Got it. Oh, so that it was that type of stuff going on. Got it though. That makes sense. So getting stuck on a conversation topic. I mean, I've had situations where, I've been in a situation where I'm meeting someone new and I like forget what I'm saying. And I really, when like you're about to say you have a thought and then you want to say it and then you're like, oh, I forgot the thought. And like I've gotten hung up on that. I'm like, I gotta remember it.
Yeah,
Super like antisocial in a way because it's like you have to move on. Because if you
yeah,
just stand there and you're like trying to remember what you were thinking, then then it's just not. It's pointless and it's awkward for the other person because they're like, we're just gonna wait for you to remember.
yeah, yeah. Overthinking. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
those ones. In fact, I still struggle with it even now, but slowly trying to overcome that.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So you're saying when you were younger, and um, do you think that was like a part of Asperger's kind of syndrome, or was it more of just like a personality, just like learning it? Like, when you think of that stuff, right? Of like, oh, I was stuck on a conversation topic. Do you attribute it more to like that diagnosis, or are you more like, oh, this is just personality? Like, how do you
I think,
think about it?
yeah, I think one of the characteristics is definitely like getting obsessed with like a particular topic, like having an obsessive interest. Like,
Got
I don't know if you've heard of this movie. There's this movie called Adam. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I think I've heard of it. I think I've heard of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I definitely heard.
Yeah. Like it's about this guy who has Asperger's syndrome, and like he had this special obsessive interest with like space and astronomy and stars.
Got it.
So it's a bit like that. So yeah, it is something which can be part of the spectrum, but I don't know. Maybe it could be a personality thing too. I don't know.
Yeah. That makes sense. Got it. Focusing on one thing, and like you said, when you start doing the artwork, it was like if that personality trait, whether it stemmed from wherever it stemmed from, it helped you with the attention to detail and focusing on one thing, which definitely seems like a helpful.
Yeah.
I'd say like, so you were saying kind of, so that the one instance where maybe it was not as good, like having that kind of trait or that impulse was in conversations and getting stuck on a conversation topic.
Yeah.
Were there any other challenges growing up? I mean, in addition, you said like talking to people, they were maybe making fun or bullying you, and you were like, you couldn't pick up on it. You thought they were just bantering.
Yeah.
Were there any other like challenges?
Yeah, I think there is quite a few like myths and stereotypes surrounding it, which I feel like hasn't quite completely been addressed yet. And like, for example, I don't know if you've ever watched Big Bang Theory. You know Sheldon Cooper?
I have, yeah.
Like they portray him as like the stereotypical nerd.
Yeah.
And you're like, I feel like with Asperger's, it affects different people differently. And Sheldon Cooper is not necessarily like an accurate representation of what the general population is like who have that condition.
Got it. Wait, yeah. He is technically I never knew this, but I guess they say he has it on the show.
They haven't specifically said whether he has it or not, but just from looking at his characteristics, like, people can kind of figure out, oh, maybe he's got this. I don't know.
Oh, got it. Like an inference or like a guess, an implicate, like it's like implied or something.
Yeah, but like maybe over exaggerated because you know how Hollywood is.
Yeah. Got it. That was something I was wondering. That was something I was wondering too. Like the misconceptions with it, right? Like, do you think that you were like kind of misunderstood because of having it, or did people even know you had it? Like in school, it's like, or did people even like? How did people know, or was it? Did you ever have to disclose it, or what was that like?
Like, I'll be honest, man, I didn't even know I had it myself until someone brought it up to me. But even then, like, some people might have figured it out because maybe they knew a friend or maybe they read up about it. But then generally, a lot of people, they don't really know anything about it. And even I've had some people say to me straight up, like, they barely know anything about autism or Asperger's. And yeah, it's like they were a bit shocked, like when I told them I had it. I mean, kind of like how you found out.
When you told me, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So I guess, so there's never like, you don't have to like disclose it or anything. It's just more of like, you said there were some people who like, there was someone who told you?
Yeah. Because I had one friend who was also on the spectrum and he told me that I was on it. I was kind of shocked hearing that. I had it myself since I had no idea what it was beforehand.
Yeah.
But then after reading about it, like everything in my life just made sense to me. Like, I understood why I was different and why it was the way it was, like growing up in school.
Got it. Now, how were those interactions, or how is it like maybe talking to someone else who has like, whether that same diagnosis of Asperger's, or like, have you like, you said your friend there had it too?
Yeah, he had it as well.
Were those interactions, did you notice, like from you talking to that friend, like your interactions with that friend versus interactions with other people in school or just growing up, were they different?
I guess yes, but at the same time, it's more like, when you talk to someone, you kind of get a feeling of whether you vibe well with them or not. Like, I know obviously me and you vibe quite well.
Right.
But I thought maybe it's just one of those ones, and I didn't necessarily think, oh, maybe it's an autism thing. I don't know.
It's because we're both Indian. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Well, we're not the same Indians though. Like, I'm technically South Indian.
Yeah. Oh, well, then that's a problem. No, that makes sense. Yeah, we definitely vibe. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess it's like just like kind of how your personalities match up. It's not even about that necessarily, or having like a same like similar conditions or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did but you did say it was different when you were talked to that friend. Were like, did you guys talk about different things, or was that, you know, I just wonder if it was different between you and that friend in particular.
Yeah, I guess it depends on, I guess, what values you have. Like, for example, with me, like when I talk to people, I like to have like deep, meaningful conversations. Like, you know, what's the meaning of life? Like, you know how some people talk about, oh, hey, how's the weather? Like, I personally don't like talking about that, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I mean, all the power to you if you can do that. But for me personally, like, I prefer to have meaningful conversations, like sharing my life with others.
Yeah.
I'm trying to provide value in some ways, and, you know, as a source of inspiration or comedy, because, you know, I like my memes, I like sending them around, so
Yeah.
people laugh.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm definitely a big fan of that too. Like having like meaningful type of conversations. Obviously, that's like where we bonded. But and even this, like you being able to share this, I think like about this type of anxiety is very meaningful to people, you know. And so kind of digging deeper into that, what gives you like the courage to, even on this podcast, right, like just share your story, or share that maybe you have like a mild form, or you have some form of it. Like where did that kind of courage come from?
Yeah, I guess it comes down to, you know, just growing up, I didn't really have too much support or guidance. Like
Mm-hmm.
growing up, like like during school, like literally I had like almost no friends at all. And there were times where I even felt suicidal, like I didn't want to live anymore. And I had like really selfless, really low self-esteem. And
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, I just hated the way I looked at that time. Like, believe it or not, I was actually self-conscious of myself back in like 2010. Like my Facebook profile picture would be of a car. Like I wouldn't even show my face.
Oh wow.
But yeah.
That's hard, man. That's not easy. Yeah, you know, especially growing up and it feeling alone, maybe like, so was that sound like a challenge growing up too, just like connecting with people or being able to relate, or like I think that's a very hard place to be, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you've reached out to people, because I've learned this too. I mean, I was lucky, I did have friends like just in high school and stuff, but I did have a period in college, my first year of college, where I didn't really connect with anybody either. And like, I was miserable, you know? So I can only imagine you growing up having experienced that for a longer period of time, you know? But I think it's awesome that you reached out to me too, because we had a mutual connection from my college. But, you know, I think that's awesome that you've done that. And it's so courageous to like be able to, like, even you've noticed yourself, but your transformation of like, oh, like now I can connect, you know, as I get older. And you didn't let like your old days or that low self-esteem stay. You were like, no, I'm going to change. I'm going to do something about this.
Yeah. I knew I had to do something. It was like a do or die moment, you know, like if I don't change my life now, then, you know, it's always going to be like this. And, you know, just the fear of that, like, that's what kicks me to like trying to take action and trying to improve myself. And that's how I got into this whole like self-improvement and personal development. Whilst also making sure I don't fall into that junkie trap.
Yeah. Wait, say the last part again. Make sure you don't fall into
The personal development junkie trap, you know.
Oh, where you just read about it and don't do anything about? Is that?
Yeah, like that. Not taking action, basically.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, we met kind of through personal development, like on a, you know, forum, or just like on, you know, like one of the Facebook groups, right? But
Yeah.
I think you know, it's definitely hard to, you know, you listen to personal development, and like you said, you've internalized some of it, and you've acted on it, at least like in the social area, right? Like that's impressive. But like the consistency and all of it, it's like definitely like that junkie trap. I can relate, because I could talk about personal development all I want, right? But if I'm not doing it, then what does it matter, you know?
Yeah. It's like reading about swimming, but if you don't actually take the dive and risk drowning, then yeah, you ain't swimming, buddy.
Yeah, like it's like someone like coaching someone and like they're like, oh, like this is how you swim, like just move your arms like forward and like kick your feet back. And then meanwhile you've never got in, you're just reading from the textbook.
Yeah. So it's like that. It's also like, like I studied like maths and science at school.
Yeah.
I could literally be spoon fed the information, but if I want to get the results I want and get the grades I need to get into university, then I gotta take action and put in the work to make sure, I get those grades that I needed to get into university, which I did in the end. Like I went to like the University of Birmingham, which is one of the Russell Group universities. It's like similar to Ivy League.
Got it. That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's like amazing. That must have been, was it a hard process like to get in, or like was there a lot of like the SATs, and did you guys do SAT? You did SAT, right?
I don't even know what SAT is.
Oh, really? Really? That's like the standardized test here in America to like go to college, to like that they score you on. I'm sure you guys had something.
Yeah, we had A levels where we took like 3 subjects. So I did maths, chemistry, and economics. And to get into my first choice was actually UCL, like University College London. And
Yeah.
my second choice was Birmingham. Like the way the grading system works is you have C, B, A, and then an A star, which is like the next grade up.
Yeah.
And to get into UCL, I needed A star and 2 A's with the A star in maths.
Wow.
But I only ended up getting 3 A's in the end. So I ended up missing my first choice and got into Birmingham instead, which is it's still a win. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome you got in. How was it in college? How were your first year? I mean, obviously you talked about growing up, maybe it was tougher to connect with people, or like just to have that social kind of scene. Did things change in college right away?
Not right away, but eventually it did. Like during my first year, I'm not gonna lie, like I actually felt like I wanted to drop out because I wasn't really enjoying like my time at university. I didn't have too many friends because like I was always told growing up, just focus on your studies and things will fall into place. Like even though I got the grades, like I still felt like there was something missing.
Right.
And I completely neglected like my social life and the personal development aspect of it. Like how like at 16 people would be going to parties and all that stuff. Like I did none of that. Like I did was just go to school, come back home, study. Like all I did was study for my exams and play video games. And so it was quite a different experience for me. So going into university was like, it's like a big jump, because all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, I got to meet people, I got to work on myself. And but I guess the good thing is like towards the end of the first year and the start of second year, like I met some really amazing people. Like some of them I'm still in touch with to this day. And I'm really grateful for that. And I think that's been the key to like my transformation from getting where I was back then to where I am right now. Like I started seeing a lot more success in terms of my social life and even my dating life to some extent. Like I'm still trying to figure some things out, but I'm definitely like happy with the progress I've made from how I was back in 2015 to where I am now.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it sounds like college was a place where you were able to like start to sharpen some of those skills of like reaching out, befriending people, like, and in a way probably kind of reinvent maybe what happened like growing up, right? Like you're like in college and you're like, oh, now I can show people like who I really am, or like, and I get it. That first year, same thing, right? Like I was just focused on studying and I didn't do anything with people, and it was actually pretty unhealthy. And I think it's unhealthy to not be social. I think, we can talk about studying and working hard and grinding and doing your own thing, but if it's not social, then it's probably not healthy, Yeah.
If you don't have someone to share it with, then, sometimes you question yourself, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And people keep you, one thing I'm realizing now too, even during this quarantine, everything that's going on, it's like people keep you accountable, right? Like if you fall off, or if you like are like starting to like not, maybe you're on personal development, or you have some habits that maybe are good, right? Like then that'll be rewarded, not rewarded, but you'll feel better connecting with people. And then when you do maybe self-destructive habits, then you're going to start connecting less with people. And so I think like you just, if you have people around you in your life, it always keeps you, even if you fall and go off the path a little bit, they keep you on because you're like, well, I can't, I still have all these relationships. I can't just
Yeah.
lose them, or like become isolated.
Yeah, but I think you need the right people in your life. Like, I don't know if you've heard that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time
Yeah,
around.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Like, if you hang around with people who help you to level up, then you're also going to level up. But if you hang around with people who get you into these destructive habits, like you say, then it's really going to send you into a downward spiral. And I've had experiences with this. Like, growing up in school, like I was surrounded by like literally people with like toxic friendships and people with like toxic personalities, getting into bad habits like pornography, for example,
Right.
and things like that. And I realized during university, like, shit, I need to get out of this. I need to cut these negative people out of my life and start surrounding myself with more positive people. And once I started doing that, then literally I saw like a dramatic improvement in the quality of life. Like, instead of pornography, like, I'll just be meditating now, reading books and making sure I don't spend too much time playing video games, because I used to play a lot of video games back in the day. And nowadays, like, I almost never play it now. Like, I'm trying to focus on my future and improving myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're right. Like, being able to cut out that bad stuff and people who maybe like do that too. Was that friend group like in college, or the people that you were talking to, were they like watching a lot of porn, or like was that happening a lot, or like what was where you were like, I got to separate myself from these people, they're off?
Yeah,
not trying to get better.
Yeah, I think pornography is one of them, and also just trying to get you involved in things which aren't really going to serve you. So, like, for example, like gossiping or poking fun at you, or again, which links back to what I said about banter. Like, they try to justify as banter, but really it was just low key bullying. And then that was something which I need to just get rid of, and hopefully find my tribe of people who are going to serve me in the long run. And yeah, I'm pleased to say, I found those people now. So, I'm in a better place now than I was back then.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that requires a lot of courage too, to be able to separate yourself from those people. I mean, especially given your story too, right? Like, coming from maybe the beginning, like having a harder time connecting with people, or like at the beginning, before college, and then having the confidence and the courage, even in college, you're like, no, I'll meet better people. I have a better group. I'll find a better group. Having faith in that, I think that's very courageous, because even me or anyone, like, I think it's hard to separate or like sever relationships maybe that you've had growing up, or I'm lucky, like the people that I've grown up with are good people, and they're trying to get better. And so, but generally, like, it's hard, right? Like, you grow up with someone. I mean, I've definitely done that before, where you grow up with someone and like they go start doing drugs and stuff and getting like really bad habits, or just completely go off the rails, right? And I think like I've had to separate that, like end that, and so I think it's awesome that you ended those, like, that were not serving you.
100%.
That's really courageous, I think. There's so much that we could talk about there, but just
speaking of that, like, finding like your tribe of people as such. The way I went about doing that was like, I kept an open mind, and I was willing to try new and different things, because how generally people, they tend to stick to things they're familiar with, like their comfort zone, right? And they're not necessarily willing to try something new. And I've got an example of that. Like, when I was in university, like because my university is like one of the best unis for like sports, so they had like literally almost every sport from like around the world. And there was one sport, I don't know if I told you about this, but I played a sport called kabaddi. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of kabaddi. It's like an Indian game.
It's like a mix of tag and American football, like without the ball. Like, I was willing to give that a try. Like, I knew what it was before, and most people probably wouldn't have heard of it. Even people listening to this podcast right now, they're gonna be like, "Yo, what the fuck is kabaddi?"
Yeah.
It's like, I was willing to give it a go, because even though like I knew it was like a village sport back in India, which is a stereotype. Because obviously, if you look at it now, it's like a proper sport. Like they have a pro kabaddi league.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Which is like a big thing. And even like America started playing in the World Cup like back in 2016.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea I thought it was just like tag.
I mean, I thought that too at first, but then as soon as I got involved, like eventually I ended up having the opportunity to like work with the England kabaddi team and creating some artwork for them. So that just shows that if you're willing to get out of your comfort zone and try new things, like you don't know what's around the corner, you don't know what opportunities are out there. So you gotta just grab yourself by the balls and
step
out your comfort zone and try new things. Like university or any time in your life, like preferably as soon as possible, is a time to get out your comfort zone, try new things, and trying everything until something falls into place. And that's how I went about finding my passion for photography. Like I tried a lot of things before finding this one. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I sucked at a lot of things. Like there was definitely a time in my life where I felt like, I suck at everything, but that's not true. It just means you haven't found what it is you're passionate about just yet. And you got to keep trying things, keep an open mind, keep putting yourself out there until something clicks. And you'll kind of get a feeling of whether or not it's for you when you try. So that's how I ended up finding I guess my passion for photo editing and photography.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I tried it, things just clicked. It just fell into place. And that's why I started running that Photoshop page, like my Instagram page.
Yeah, that's very inspirational. I mean, what are some of the things maybe that you tried out that because I agree, I agree with that. I think I've tried things too. One of the things I tried singing freshman year of college, and I sounded like it just didn't sound good. And I think I tried rapping a little bit too. But I never wanted to share it with people because I'm like, I don't know if I'm like, it's probably not that great. I don't have like a rap voice. So, but anyways, like I was trying it like in my room but that was the thing though. It wasn't connecting with people, right? Like even with comedy right now, it's like I connect with people. I make people laugh, or like, you work towards that, and it's for people or it's with people too. And with like even that rap and stuff, I was just doing it alone and I just didn't connect with anyone on it. So it was like very insular, and then I was singing and I took singing lessons. And then my roommate, or like the people who lived in the dorm next to me, at the end of the year, we were just hanging out and we were talking, and they're like, yeah, we've heard you like practicing your vocals, like, and like we were just kind of like on the other side just laughing, right? Like just like because they're like and I'm so dumb. I didn't realize that they didn't I didn't think about it. Didn't occur to me like, oh, they can hear me singing, like, and I'm singing not like cool songs. I'm singing like songs like from like the 1970s, 80s, like songs that not even like guys sang, right? Like that, those were my lines, and I can't even remember which exact, like Mary Poppins or something.
Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah. So they were just laughing. I gave them free comedy. So I guess that was my entrance into comedy. But what are some of the things maybe that you tried that where you were like, this isn't the thing?
Yeah, I remember trying, I told you I studied economics, right? Because I studied that for A-levels. I enjoyed it at the time, but as soon as I got into university, I realized, man, this is so boring. I don't want to do this anymore. And I ended up doing 1 year in computer science. And whilst, I enjoyed it, it was interesting. It wasn't something that was like, it felt natural to me. And that's when I realized that, okay, maybe if I stick to like, the creative aspect of technology rather than pure like coding, because how with coding, it's like completely abstract. You're seeing like blocks of text on the screen. You can't really associate that with like anything. It's like, sometimes I'm thinking, what the fuck does this mean? Yeah. And there's also back in school, like, I don't know if you've heard of cricket, like that sport.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because most of the people listening are probably American, and I don't know if they
we're Indian. Yeah, I don't even know who will listen, but yeah, you're right. So yeah, to anyone who doesn't know, cricket's just like it's like Indian baseball.
Yeah, you summed it up, man. I tried that for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And whilst I was getting better, like I couldn't see myself as like the next MS Dhoni or the next Sachin Tendulkar or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I
Yeah.
could not see myself getting to that level. So that's when I realized, okay, I don't see a future in that. So
Right.
better go try and better go try something else. And even just like what's it social, like right, when you like promoting content on social media, like when I was at university, like I was on the committee for the Kabaddi Club, where I was managing the social media pages, and I was like promoting events, writing blog posts.
Yeah.
That made me realize, okay, if I run my own page and do something similar where I can create content which is not only entertaining but also inspirational, and to see if people can gain some value and go ahead and apply that to their own lives. Because how, I don't know, you've seen some of my pictures where I make people look like they're part of the Avengers or
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, because a lot of people have this limiting belief where they feel like, oh, I'm not good looking enough, or I'm not tall enough, and all that. Like I'm sure you know where I'm coming from, but it's not true. Like you can achieve anything you want if you put your mind to it. And I just want to show people that it is possible to go after what you want, and 80% of the battle is all about your mindset. Like I was self-conscious as fuck back in 2010, but now if you ask me to take part in a photo shoot, I'd happily do it. So it is possible to change, and like nothing in life is set in stone. Like you can achieve anything you want. Like your destiny is pretty much in your hands.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And that's great that even like in college that what was it, the cricket team, or no, it was the kabaddi, like which one did you manage? The kabaddi, like the social media, you handled that for that, right?
Yeah,
that team. And so that I guess it is kind of nice that like helped you discover probably your passion for like being like a digital artist.
Yeah, that definitely helped with that. Yeah, for sure.
And even like you said, that message behind like pursuing your passion, it's like, yeah, you can do whatever you want and like become good at it, and the self-limiting beliefs, like getting rid of those, which maybe it sounds like you kind of have done for yourself, or at least to some extent eliminated some of them, or all of them. So that's great, that you've done that. I think it's so awesome, like that you were able, that this transformation that happened, from when you were younger to now, to like in college, and then now like you're like you've improved and you're like very optimistic and positive, and that's like very lots of respect, lots of respect.
I am on.
So I think it's so great. But so now, right, like now in college, and even like just in everyday life now, like working, right, do you feel like you used to, like maybe it was harder to connect with people, or people used to maybe like make fun and like you thought they're bantering? Have you had those experiences did you have those experiences as you got older?
I think, to be honest, like generally when you become an adult, like when you turn 18 and onwards, like life gets better in the sense that you have control over which environment you're in, and if you're surrounded by people who aren't serving you, then you can just get rid of them and find someone who does serve you. And I think it's a lot easier to do that when you're older than versus when you're at school. Like if you're in a classroom with like this guy, we'll call him, I don't know, I'll give him a name, Mac, the complete bully. Like he's trying to poke fun at you. Like if you wanted to get away from him, like it'd be harder to do because you're kind of stuck with him in the same class, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're like when you're in college or even just work, like if you don't like what someone's doing, then you can just walk away easily. You can just block the person on social media or whatever, and just do whatever it takes to like make sure that you're surrounded by people who are giving positive vibes. So I think it does get easier as you get older. Like I think it becomes harder to find people, but generally the quality of people you meet like after college is better. Like you have to be a bit proactive, like like with me, like I was joining Facebook groups, I was reaching out to people. I mean, I reached out to you, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And so would you say, I mean, back in the day, maybe discerning the people who were or like distinguishing who was on your side, right? Because it sounds like at the beginning, like there were some people who were like, you thought they were a friend, when meanwhile they were like not, you know. So it sounds like you have better judgment even now of like, oh, like of picking who you want to surround yourself with.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. Like, there was actually one time where, I was approached by someone who, at first I thought he was a friend and he had good intentions. Like, he was trying to get me to join one of those, I don't know if you know those multi-level marketing or pyramid schemes, as you call it.
I've heard of them. I don't know exactly what the trap is, though.
Yeah, like he tried to, and because one of the difficulties I've had was being like easily manipulated and taken advantage of.
Mm.
And, I had no idea at the time, but I thought like he had good intentions for me and he wanted me to succeed in life. But then what ended up happening was, I just ended up losing like at least £1,000, if not more.
Oh man.
Like just because this guy had, he was able to manipulate me, and I didn't know how to recognize that, okay, this person's not good for me.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, so it's quite a traumatic experience, but I think it did teach me a lesson that you shouldn't, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, right? So
yeah,
and that's what motivated me to improve myself and try to be able to read people, so that if I do come across someone that's going to try and sell me into one of these scams, then I can identify and be like, okay, this guy doesn't have my best interest, so I'm not going to get involved.
Yeah, got it. That makes sense. And not to trust people to like right away, or to like have trust built over time.
Yeah, because
Probably.
you don't know someone till you really get to know them, and I kind of had to learn that the hard way.
Especially in business.
Yeah.
I mean, that's horrible that he did that. So was he like, did he just pitch to you like, oh, like if you give me this amount of money, then I can like grow it and give you back more?
It was more like it's not like one of those traditional pyramid schemes, but it's like, we have this product or service. If you sell this, then you can make this much amount of money. But then what they didn't talk about was, the failure rate is quite high, and it's just quite deceptive. Like the way they try to pitch it to you, they just sell you the dream rather than the actual game itself. So, and for me, like I didn't know at that time, but obviously now I know not to fall for those again.
So they gave you a product to sell?
Yeah, it's like one of those. I don't know if you've heard of Amway, that product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a product or service, which I didn't really believe in, but it was like one of those ones.
Oh, got it. They're like, if you sell this, you'll make a lot more. Just pay us this much to get it.
Yeah, and the product is shit, so
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
When did that happen?
This was back in 2017.
Got it.
Yeah, this was after I came back from New York, like when I did my internship for 2 months.
Got it.
That's how I met like our mutual friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, that's obviously a tough experience, but like you said, you learn from it, and then try and like move forward, because what else could you do, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's good. I think that's a great lesson, because then now, like when you talk to people, or people are like asking you things, like you can be a little more skeptical about it, or it's a tough balance, because I guess you have to trust some, at a certain point you have to trust people, but I guess maybe trusting people after you've known them for a little while,
Yeah. And I guess one thing that's helped me is, I've got trusted friends, right?
Right.
I can tell them, okay, I've met this person. Like, would you be able to tell me if he serves me or not? And like some of them are pretty good at reading people like within 5 minutes, so they can tell me, okay, this person's not good for you. Distance yourself.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've had that a lot recently, so that's definitely helped.
Like friends have told you?
Yeah, like close friends I've had since like school.
They tell you like, this person's not good news?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Those are good friends. Those are good friends.
Yeah, I feel fortunate to have met them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had and then maybe, yeah, my friends will tell me like, yeah, like this person's probably not good, or especially in dating necessarily, like, or like if,
Oh, definitely that too. Yeah.
or maybe like whatever's happening in that time period, it's like, this isn't the right energy you kind of need at this time, so I think it's great that you're able to, you're alert about that. You're very aware of who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's really improved your like life, right? Like I think it's like from, like you said, in school and stuff, maybe you were trapped. Not that's like a probably a depressing way to put it, but like you're like trapped with these people inside a classroom and you can't choose who.
Yeah, trapped in Jamokeville.
Yeah. And for our listeners, Jamokeville is just like not a fun place to be. Just not, and so yeah, I think that's you're right. Like you're definitely in that, and you're kind of forced. And then as you get older, you're able to make your own decisions. And it sounds like you've definitely capitalized on that autonomy, that freedom.
Yeah, I mean it's a lifelong journey, but you know everything is lifelong. Like, even with my photo editing stuff, even though I've been doing it for like at least 6 years or more, like I'm still learning new things even now. So the learning never really stops.
Yeah. And with your current job too, right? That you mentioned to me, you just started working in IT. Is it
Typical Asian? I know.
no, I wasn't gonna say it. I wasn't gonna say anything. But now that you bring it up, no. Now that you bring it up, yeah, no. It's IT consulting, right?
Yeah.
And what made you want to go after that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think with me, it's like, I know that my passion lies within like content creation
Right.
and things like that. But I think IT was probably the closest career choice I've had into pursuing what I want long term, at least until I make enough money to eventually quit my job. But I'm nowhere near that stage yet. I'm still trying to figure out. Like I have considered other career paths as well. Like how like in Indian families, like generally they either become doctors or engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I could never see myself like studying medicine to become a doctor. And I've looked at other career paths like law or dentistry, but none of those appealed to me. So computer science made the most sense to me. So that's why I went into that. And then here I am working in IT consulting. And I'm pretty happy with it so far. Like I've met some cool people like at my workplace.
Yeah.
I mean it's kind of weird though, because with the whole COVID-19 situation, like we have to work remotely. Like all of our meetings and stuff were done using like Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
And like I'm meeting them virtually first before meeting them in real life.
Yeah. Like us. Yeah.
Pretty much like us.
Yeah.
That's informal though. Yeah.
Yeah. It is weird. I mean, I've had that too. I've had to meet people like that. I would say, even similar to your approach to life, and I'm actually learning from you in this regard of reaching out to people. And I've done it for the podcast, and I kind of learned through that a little bit. But you're right, dude. Like being able to reach out to people, and even what the reason I bring it up is in work too. Like you're working from home, like sending someone a message, or it can very easily become isolated if you just don't talk, if you don't message people, right? Or if you don't like try and coordinate or hop on those calls and stuff, right? It's like, because in the office you would be around people, you would be seeing people a lot. So I think even in that kind of space, it's also important to reach out and to ask questions and to be proactive.
Yeah.
And
trying to connect with people, because at the end of the day, like a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet.
right.
And there's different ways of meeting people. Like, obviously, the most common way is to meet people through school or through university or through sports clubs, and things like that. But if you think outside the box for a little bit, like you'll realize that the world is really a small place and there's endless opportunities out there. Like even just from joining Facebook groups alone, like I've been able to connect with people from all around the world, like people from America, Canada, from Europe, even India as well. Like the possibilities are endless, man.
For sure, social media has completely changed the game. I think there's people that even comedian, like, because comedy's kind of where I'm focused, but like in terms of my passion, right? So I think that I'll connect with comedians even now, right? For this podcast, or even you, like we've connected, like through social media. But then another comedian that I know, like, follows me because I'm another comedian in New York. So I've met people through comedy. I think another thing is like, another thing I eventually want to do at some point. I've heard jujitsu is like super, a lot of people do it. I think Joe Rogan did it or something.
I did it for a bit.
You did it, right? Too. Yeah. You remember
Yeah.
you saying that. So stuff like that, you can meet cool people through that. Like a lot of these different activities, I think, you know, obviously that's not social media, but if you join it right now, I think it's the best way to probably, if you're going to try to grow your network, like reaching out to people digitally is probably a smarter or more likely kind of thing to do.
At least until this pandemic passes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, but yeah, it's crazy, like networking and all of that stuff. I mean, I think it's so important, and it's just not. I don't even think it's really discussed or taught, right? Like in university or like maybe some professors will talk about it, but I think generally it's like it's such an important skill to like reach out to people, to like go do those social things, because it'll help you with your business or your passion project, because you have a team, you know?
Yeah, you mentioned that. Like, literally, I remember from school, the only thing I was ever taught was how to do algebra or how to do Pythagoras theorem. Basically, stuff which, I mean, yeah, I learned it for the exam, but after that, it pretty much fucked off, and I never use it now.
Right, right, yeah.
Most of my learning just came from self-education,
Right.
like reading books, listening to podcasts. And
Yeah.
I mentioned that because I'm on a podcast right now, but
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's mainly all the learning is done outside of the classroom. Like you've probably heard that saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
only when I took the initiative to start those things, like, I've been able to see like dramatic improvements in my
Right.
life
Right.
and the quality of life. And
Right.
I've lived through it. So I mean, I still got a long way to go, but I can see the changes for sure.
Yeah. 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 And that's good. I mean, I think it's good to have hope that you can keep improving, keep getting better, right?
Yeah.
That's like always. Recently, I've kind of been trying to focus on that, of like when I go to bed or anything, it's like, all right, like I'm looking forward to improving at this thing, and tomorrow is going to always be better if you keep kind of building better habits, right? So like you'll have better energy, or you'll have more, and like looking forward to those types of things is huge, you know. But I do want to go back to what you were saying. So you were saying, just now, you just said, what was the point you're making? Oh, a lot of the learning happens outside of the classroom. Yeah, I agree. I think especially the personal development stuff, it's like what you seek, right? And right, even with your mindset, right? Like going from growing up and like having challenges, you know, and you're selecting, like you're seeking the right people, or you're like looking for that. Same thing,
Yeah.
like the personal development knowledge, right? Like you seek it, like you're kind of, it's all at our fingertips, but it's just like your mindset of like, what do you want to read about or understand more? And it's like, yeah, a lot of that personal development stuff, even like networking or knowing, oh, like if I'm social, this is good. Like those types of things are kind of taught more from you going through experiences and listening to podcasts, listening or reading your own articles, you know?
Yeah, and surrounding yourself with good people. And I think the key takeaway that I want to share is that, if someone is struggling with like autism or Asperger's for that matter, then, there is hope to like improve and get better. The main thing is to just keep taking action to constantly improve yourself. And, it is possible to learn conversation skills because, after reading like some books, like I've noticed that my conversations are a lot better now than what it was 5 years ago, where I was like really logical and getting married to a conversation topic, as I mentioned earlier on. And, not being able to banter. Whereas now it's like, I feel like I can banter a lot better now than I was before.
Yeah.
And you've probably noticed it as well from when we spoke.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say you're a good banterer.
Yeah. And it's mainly just finding people who are understanding, like who you vibe with. So I feel like, you know, it is possible to make friends. I mean, yeah, it's a lot harder than the average person, but it is something which can be done. And it's just about finding the right people or the right person if you're looking for a relationship.
Right.
It might take longer, and I'm still trying to figure that out, but we will
Yeah.
eventually get there.
Yeah, and it also, if you know, one thing that I would share with that too is like, if you start really like who you are and you start building those like good habits, and um you know, I think that then you'll find like you'll also attract the right people too, right? Like it'll be, because if you're good, then you're not going to settle for something that, not settle, but like you're not going to invite something that's going to bring you down, you know, because
Yeah.
you have more value. So I think that that's important. I think it's also important that you brought up like anyone with Asperger's or any other kind of condition, if they feel down, because I think that's a very powerful story that you're sharing, you know, from your experiences. Like I think that that's huge, you know, for anyone who maybe has the condition, or a different condition, and it's isolating them, or they're growing up and it sucks, right? Like whatever you're going through. And it's like, well, that's not going to be forever, you know, like knowing at that. And that's a big point. Another point you made, like everything we go through, it's temporary. Like I've had days where like, you know, you don't feel good, or you're not, but you have to understand, like when I'm realizing as I get older, is it's all temporary, right? Like this feeling of like, whether it's like, you know, a bad feeling, like it's going to go away. You
Yeah.
just have to like, just live, like just, it's going to pass.
Yeah. And hopefully this pandemic will pass too.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a great way to kind of wrap it up. I think, the one thing I do want to talk about before we end is, you talked about meditation, and I've talked about with my different guests too about it too. And I know we've talked about it, and you've been doing it, and I've kind of started doing it too. What have your experiences with that been like? Do you think that that's really improved interactions, or helped you?
Yeah. I think definitely it's improved my interactions, and even just like my sense, like I feel like I'm a lot more at peace for myself, and even other people have started noticing it too. Like they were like, "Oh my God, Bazz, you've changed. What have you done during this lockdown? It's obviously worked." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, sweet, finally a win." So, like, you know, it's allowed me to, you know, de-stress and keep my mind, like, you know, how in the morning, like sometimes I feel like my thoughts are running all over the place, but as soon as I meditate, like I feel like so much better and so much calm. And even just interacting with people, I feel like the confidence just comes across a lot more better now than it was a few years ago. So I think it's been beneficial in that sense. And another thing I want to bring up is, there's nothing necessarily wrong with autism as such. Like, you know, it's just the way our brain is programmed. Like we have strengths and weaknesses, and the main thing is just to focus on our strengths. But what I do think that needs to be addressed is just society's attitude and perspective towards people who have it. Because, you know, I mentioned earlier on that people have a tendency to bully, take advantage, manipulate that. Like, you know, if you try to make them feel like they're a part of this world and included, then, you know, I definitely think like we all have potential to achieve the life we want, you know, have the friends we want and the career we want, and, you know, just achieve success. Like it's a bit harder initially, but I think with the right support, like you can definitely get there. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. No, it's a powerful message. I think, you know, that's really, you know, that's really good to share. And I also think that, like you said, I mean, even growing up, we had a program in our high school called Best Buddies. And basically like we would, you know, you'd pair with someone maybe who had maybe even like a higher degree or form of autism, or it was more extreme, and or just more intense. And then like you just, you know, you'd hang out after school and make, just like try, you know, just hang out just as friends and like become a part of the community. Because like some people with this condition, or it's like, yeah, like, you know, you want to make everyone feel a part of the community, you know. So like
100%.
we'd have sports too, like for that. And like, we had unified sports, that's what they called it. So, you know, we'd have someone who maybe had like a, you know, autism or something, and you know, genetically like just had, had that going on, right? So, but it's like we played sports together, or like, you know, I wasn't in Unified, but I did Best Buddies for a little while. Like Unified sports, I would watch that. I'd go to like the games, you know, and I'd see some of my classmates, and then, you know, some other people too, like they would all play together, and it was like super fun to watch. And like great, because it connected people, and I think that's why I bring that up, because I think that was like a program that was designed to connect and integrate, and not just integrate, but just like bring people in who, you know, maybe if you have a different condition, or if you're, you know, you're wired a little differently, like there's programs that help build you up versus like tearing you down, you know, like, and the last thing I want to note is, I think whenever someone, and it's hard when you're young, like even what happened with you, someone's bullying you, right? It's out of insecurity, right? Like, or if they're teasing you and you're not picking up on it, like they have massive insecurities. And I think that's understandable. Just like, it's not right, but it's understandable that it would happen when you're a kid, because a lot of people have insecurities as a kid.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important thing to note, right? Like if someone is bullying you, or if anyone listening to this, or if anyone ever hears this, of like, you know, it's out of their own insecurity, you know, it's like, it's not you.
Yeah. So in other words, Jaboke.
Yeah. So I think that's a great way to wrap things up. Before we end this, do you want to do any plugs, Bazz?
Yeah, so I actually run an Instagram page. Like I've got my personal account and then my Photoshop account, where I upload weekly Photoshop edits. You know, it'll be a combination of entertainment, and of course I'll be providing some value which you can hopefully apply to your own life and use it as inspiration. And like all my edits are made using Photoshop. So if you want to check that out, that's Real Buzzkill, RealBazzKill. So yeah, make sure you check that out. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah. I love how you did the double Z, double L. That was awesome. I would have probably said ZZ, but you said double Z. Double Z sounds cooler.
Yeah, that was a compliment.
It is. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely, to anyone listening, definitely check it out. I follow that page, and the artwork is amazing, and it's really cool. It's very, yep.
If you want to get involved in my edits, feel free to hit me up, and I'll make you look like you're part of the Avengers.
Yeah. And they're awesome. They're super creative, very unique. So definitely check it out, and go to that page. You know, thank you so much for being on, Bazz. I appreciate it, and opening up about this particular anxiety. I think it's very courageous, as I said before. Yeah, just really appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much, man. But yeah, stay beastly.
Yeah, stay beastly. Yeah, stay strong. We got this. Into all the listeners, stay tuned for the next episode. You know, we'll be back. You know, this UnCoMfY train is gonna keep on rolling. UnCoMfY CoNvOs train. The UnCoMfY train doesn't make sense. That's not the name of the podcast.
I'm definitely going to be sharing UnCoMfY CoNvOs to the UK.
Yeah, please. Yeah, please do. I appreciate it. But yeah, well, everyone listening, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Peace.